Hi, I'm Jim Knotts, President and CEO of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Welcome to today's virtual reading of the names. 2022 marks the 40th anniversary of the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. As part of our commemoration, we'll host an in-person reading of the names at the wall from November 7th through 10th, 2022, when all 58,281 names on the wall will be read aloud. In the lead up to that event, we'll be reading names each day online while sharing the photos of these heroes. For our daily virtual reading, the names of the service members will be read by month and day of death between the years 1956 and 1975 in alphabetical order for the given day. We apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. Know that our readers are doing their best to honor these service members. We hope you'll listen and watch each day and share with others as we remember and honor those who gave their lives during the Vietnam War.
Walter Eugene Andrews Jr., Luciano Arias, James Harold Armstrong, Eric Marvin Barnes, Francis Archer Barnes, Jimmy Dale Bean, Gernot Bender, Frederick Wilson Burgess, Patrick Michael Burwart, David Forrest Black, Jean Orville Blosky, Leonard E. Borchard Jr., Richard Eugene Boyd, James Edward Brannan, Gary Michael Brannan, Elmore Brittingham Jr., Ernest James Brown, Walter Evans Brown Jr., Chris Brown Jr., Robert Lee Burdett, Clarence Herbert Bursaw, Edwin Gerald Calhoun, MacArthur Calloway, Robert Caraviano, Douglas Joe Carpenter, Eddie Dean Carper, Jack David Carter, John Michael Casey, Glenn Francis Cashdollar, Ronnie Joe Charles, Robert L. Chavez, Charles Benjamin Clanton, Floyd Burnett Coates, Bruce Allen Cobb, Lloyd Arthur Colfax, David H. Cooper II, William E. Copeland II, Jackson Elliott Cox, George Tolliver Cox, Eugene Jerome Curlis, Jr., Tom Davis, Jr., David Reed DePriest, Raymond Roger DeMoe, David Eugene DeWitt, Stephen Heldon Doan, Eddie Leroy Dodd, James Focal Donnelly, Patrick Michael Doyle, Willie Clay Dozier, Michael Roy Dunn, Richard Allen Ekval, Frank Joseph G. Ellis, Jr., Hugh William Elmore, Richard Maynard Epps, Maximino Estrada, James William Evans, Albert Clifton Files, Jr., Steve Flaherty, Eduardo Flores, Doyle Foster, Luis Magin Garcia, Pedro Encarnacion Garcia, Gary George Geiger, Homer Lane Gleaton,
Carter Lee Graves, Jewel Robert Green, Edward Green, Jr., Toby Richard Greitz, Larry Marshall Grunwald, Joseph Clayton Haga, Gary Dean Halliday, Tracy Wallace Hargrave, Charles Harmon, John David Harper, Jr., Harold James Hartwell, Earl Marshall Hayes, Dennis Leo Hayes, Miles Bradley Hedlund, John Ellsworth Hefty, Richard Edward Heil, Kenneth Harry Heitman, Frederick Daniel Herrera, Bennett James Herrick, Rockwell Selden Heron, Prentice Wayne Hicks, John Lawrence Higgins, Charles Alban Hinckley, James Hamilton Heiss, Richard Juan Hopper, Joseph Bernard Horseman, Jerome Ellis Jackson, Harvey Leon J., Bobby Dale Jennings, Roy L. Johnson, Kenneth Johnson, Wallace B. Johnson III, Doward Leroy Jones, Jr., Curtis Charles Jewston, Edward Joseph Urick II, Michael Eugene Justice, Michael James Kelly, Monty Clifford Kanash, Thomas Keith King, Donald Ray Kenton, Raymond Henry Knight, Anthony Joseph Corpish Jr., Leonard William Lebowski, Roger Allen Lakin, Edward Donald Lamoureux, Alfred Frank Lance, Michael Dean Locks, Richard Edward Leggett, Gerald Arthur Latondra, Philip Edmund Lynch, Balfour Oliver Litton Jr., Raymond Louis Macklin, Michael Lee Malin, Frank James Malseed Jr., Owen Dewey Marler III, Lloyd Lyndall McBroom, John Henry McCarthy, Robert F. McDonald II, Clyde D. McDonald II, R. D. McDonnell, Donald Lyle McHugo, Patrick C. McElroy, Glenn Alfred Manowski, John Michael Mihailovich,
Greg Wendell Mills, Donald Mills, Renee Clarence Miskos, Wayne Moneymaker, Clarence Willie Montgomery, Douglas Eugene Moore, James Eldon Moore, Franklin Edward Moore, Charles Nathan Moss, John Wayne Mower, James Michael Mullins, Darrell Jean Napier, Ronald M. Newman, Gary Ken Newman, Shirley Wayne O'Boyle, James John O'Shaughnessy, Dennis Michael Orbino, David Thomas Orwig III, Sanford Jean Pack, Thomas Padilla, Jeffrey Matthew Parmalee, Dudley Randolph Patty, Chester Raymond Pavey, Michael Lawrence Pfuffer, Malcolm Jerome Pickett, A.V. Presley, Manuel Ramirez Puentes, Samuel Medina Ramirez, William Lee Ray, Wade Russell Rumey, Dennis R. Richards, Richard Dean Roberts, Philip Owen Robinson, Robert Douglas Robinson, Richard Joseph Rossano, Charles Niven Rudd, Daniel C. Runkle, Antonio Quichocho Sablon, Frank Eric Sacharansky, Louis Eugene Sampler, Donald Ray Sanders, Howard Leroy Sever, Donald Harold Schmidt, Uwe Thorsten Scoble, Dominic M. Semitelli, Jr., Gilbert Serrano, Edward Clarence Sheldon, John Brooks Sherman, John Otis Sherrill, William Jose Shortsleeves, Dennis Carl Showers, Larry Arnold Simison, David Gerald Smith, Norman Carter Smoots, Ronald Sockley, David Paul Stark, Joseph Thomas Tangery, Jimmy Joe Tissaudry, Floyd Nicholas Thoman, William Henry Thomas Jr., Randall Allen Thompson, George Thompson Jr., Carl Edward Todd, William James Torpy, Michael William Twigg, James Glenn Upchurch, Warren Demarest Vault Jr., Frankie Don Wade, Joseph Wakefield Jr., Dennis Laverne Waskiewicz, David Allen Weber, Herbert F. Welts Jr., Clarence Albert Whitehead, Brodus Alfred Witt, Robert Joseph Weidman, Gary Ray Wigginton, William Robert Wilson, James Albert Wood, Larry E. Workman, Robert Lee Wonder,